But James is on the line. He would like to disagree with us. What's up, James?
Allah is most merciful, there, Jay. Speaking of a popular British rapper, what he actually said before he chopped James Foley's head off, did you know that?
I didn't know he was a rapper, no.
Yeah, a popular one at that. And like I had suggested to you, speaking of it not being about politics, just as what you call your activism is not about politics, right? It's about your values, right?
I don't know what you're talking about. Do you have a peaceful resistance story to share with us?
No, I just want to talk to you about other things that have been said on your show.
Okay, like what?
Well,
what?
Okay, speaking of peaceful resistance.
Yeah.
And going on tangents, I'd like you to speak to, the last time I left you on Peace News Now,
yes,
was with a rhetorical question about, do you actually believe that the U.S. would be dropping bombs in Iraq if there was no such thing as ISIS?
So the question at hand is, do I think the U.S. would be dropping bombs on Iraq if there were no such thing as ISIS? What do you think about that?
Well, I'd like to reiterate your response, which was actually, to my shock, you said yes. And then you went on a bizarre tangent and went in history in reverse.
Wasn't the U.S. dropping bombs on ISIS
justified your answer by...
All right, I have the mute button here. Let's get that straight. Wasn't the U.S. dropping bombs on Iraq before ISIS?
Have I been on mute?
Yes, I asked you a question. Now it's your turn.
The last time the United States military dropped bombs, well, they had reconnaissance flights after the military was pulled out of Iraq, asked by and done for the Iraq military.
All right.
So
you got to make this about peaceful resistance pretty quick.
Well, I want to ask you, because you say you have more imagination than others. You literally have said that on Peace News Now.
Yeah, that's true.
So I'd love to know what would you do about a very large army and very dangerous gun toters and murderers that are now on the warpath in Iraq. What would you do about them?
What would I do? Why is it my responsibility?
Okay, you've discussed James Foley. You brought it up.
Sure.
I should like to know what you would do about it to put a stop to a rapper from England ending up in Syria and then Iraq chopping people's heads off. What does your imagination inform you to tell you how to make the world a better place and for us to have peace now?
That's a great question. That's a great question. I appreciate your question, James. Thank you. So what do I do when I'm faced with a situation like James Foley, a British rapper allegedly cutting the head off of another man on camera and putting the video out there for everyone to see? For those who aren't familiar, this is a scene that just happened this week in Iraq, where there are some terrorists calling themselves ISIS. They have about a quarter of their foreign division are British. It's really strange. It's a group of militant Muslims, and they're seeking to make an Islamic state. So that's the idea, and this murderer went on camera as a covered in black terrorist, and he chopped another man's head off, James Foley, this reporter. And James, the caller in Arizona, just asked me, what do I do about that when there's this group of violent people? To that I say a few things. So, like, first of all, there's always going to be violent people out in the world, and it's not all my responsibility to do something about it, right? The only things in my responsibility are the things that I opt into, the things that I am responsible for. I mean, that's redundant, right? But like, if I'm paying for a war, then I am responsible for it. But I don't pay for that war. I don't pay for any wars. So that's none of my business. I stay out of it. I didn't tell James Foley to go over there. Maybe the people who paid him to do that have a bit of responsibility to retaliate against the people who killed him. But I don't. My responsibility is to preach peace here, today, where I am, all the time. If I'm preaching peace and if I'm living peace, then that will spread throughout the world through my own little sphere of influence. And the same is true of you and every other listener. That's how we achieve peace. Not through standing armies, not through invasions, not through drone strikes or cruise missiles. It's through living peace every day, preaching peace, ending conflicts, resolving situations nonviolently, using our imaginations. You know, it's not, oh, pick up a gun, send the army. I mean, oh gosh, what a lack of imagination that shows, if you think that's the best solution. No. An eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth just makes the whole world blind. The cycle of violence has to end somewhere. And it ends with you not picking up a knife or a fist to solve your problems, but saying, I'm going to either resolve my conflicts peacefully or I'm going to walk away. And that's not appeasement, by the way. We've talked about appeasement on this show, and yeah, there is absolutely a right to self-defense, you know, but it's not my right to defend James Foley. I don't even know who he is. I don't know if he was even really killed. I don't know the whole story. I'm not involved. Yeah, it's an interesting news blurb, but it's not me. It's not you. We are not involved. We are not implicated in this crime. So it's a great question that James raises. What do you do when confronted with this? Because it is disturbing to see stories like that, and it seems like we should be doing something about it, right? The impulse is always the government ought to be doing so. We ought to be helping the police of the world, or should send the police for. No. Sometimes the solution is actually counterintuitive. The less you do, the more independent others become, and then they can solve their own problems. You know, there's a problem between Obama and that ISIS guy. Personally, it doesn't have to do with anything you've done. Unless you've funded the military. Then you're a little bit responsible, and maybe you should make good on that somehow. Neutralize your karma however you see fit. But for my part, I'm going to continue preaching peace. That's all I can do.